Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session. My name's Nathan Keller. I'm the moderator for today, and I'm joined by Royanna Chappell, Jamie Wilson, Jamie, and the Ocado team. We're going to be talking today a bit about Ocado, joined with GXO, and discussing about their business.
Go ahead.
Okay. Kick off. Did we have the video initially?
No. That'll come afterwards, yes.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So yeah, just talking about the chat. So we're going to, as I said, we're going to have a bit of a slide deck a bit later on. Initially, I'd just kick over to Jamie just to discuss the Chuck AMR solution.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I think, first of all, just to give a brief introduction to Ocado and who we are and how we've come here today. So Ocado started off around 23 years ago as an online grocery fulfillment business. Over those years, we implemented a large amount of automation, and we developed a lot of in-house experience in terms of how we can optimize our own fulfillment centers to really drive as much efficiency out of solutions. That technology platform really started to lead the way in which the world was doing online fulfillment of groceries. And we had lots of partners reach out to us from across the world who said, hey, Ocado, we would very much like to replicate the way in which you work. And we started to then implement our own proprietary technologies across the world with several key partners, and we still continue to have those relationships. However, in 2022, we actually decided to sell our technology to other verticals within the market. And that's what formed Ocado Intelligent Automation, the team that is sat here. As of last year, we actually then procured Chuck, which is what we're here to talk about today and what John Wilson's kindly come across from GXO to discuss with us. And that acquisition was really important for Ocado. So in order for us to make sure that we can drive solution-based selling and really support our customers and add value, we needed to make sure our solutions comprised of other technologies, not just our core tech that we will discuss shortly. And for us, we've really seen a tremendous amount of success. We've had great reception from clients like GXO and other customers in the industry who have really told us how great Six Rivers was as a business, and that's what led for us to put forward that acquisition.
Excellent, excellent. And Royanna, just wanted to ask the question. So we understand that the Six Rivers system, and of course its core product, Chuck, has been acquired by Ocado Group and folded into the OOA solution. Can you give the group some context of the Chuck AMR and some of its product milestones, what solutions it unlocks for your customers, and discuss Ocado's commitment to the Chuck solution?
Yeah, would love to. First of all, when Ocado brought on 6RS, it was to expand that product line, like Jamie just mentioned, to allow customers to enter their automation journey at different needs. The Ocado solution is incredibly high-end, high throughput. Chuck was designed and developed to meet a niche, to go from a manual operation, whether that was picking with paper, picking with RF, or picking with voice, to get them that next level of throughput and efficiency. And it really impacts operational floors kind of in three ways. One, impacting travel. And it's one of the biggest costs in operations. Around 35% of a total operating cost is just travel and indirect activity. So that's number one. Number two, Chuck groups orders tighter together, putting things that are alike together. Much like you building a peanut butter sandwich, you don't go to your pantry, 4 times to get the ingredients. You go once, right? We want to do the same thing in operations and get that efficiency. So that's number two, is grouping things together to get that efficiency. Number three is saving time at the pick face for the associates that we employ. There's a high turnover in these verticals. And how do we train more effectively and get better pick face access and movement? And we do that by giving a lot of visual clues to the operator on the robot. But I want to be clear to the audience, it's really our software that enables this robot that we named Chuck, kind of his nickname, in order to impact those operations. So, John, would you add anything to that I missed in regards to those efficiencies before we kind of get into how GXO is leveraging the tech?
Well, that's a great question. So for GXO, it's part of our strategy in terms of adaptive tech. We break our technology into two sections in terms of large-scale automation and adaptive tech. And adaptive tech for us is flexible, modular technology that we can retrospectively fit, and Chuck fits that perfectly. So for GXO, we can deploy it to existing operations very, very easily. We're able to bring the staff along on the journey. They really engage with the technology. They see the benefits of the technology. And we in operations where we have the technology working side by side still with manual, we actually have staff that want to come in early to get to work with Chuck rather than still be doing the manual operation. So for us, there's great benefits.
Yeah, sure.
And Jamie, just in regards to leveraging technology, so innovation always allows you to stay one step ahead, and an organisation's success in fulfilment often is based around their technology and being successful. How does Chuck work into a fulfilment operation, and how do clients utilise it on their existing sites or any future sites?
Yeah, I think one of the really great values that we can have with the Chuck platform is John was just mentioning a moment ago, is the simplicity in how we can deploy that solution. So any brownfield or greenfield site is a suitable site that we can certainly come along and evaluate those individual projects. The key thing for us is actually the simplicity of how we integrate the software. So the orchestration layer is very easy. We've made sure that all of our APIs are as standardized as possible. We really want to make sure that when we deploy, it's not a hindrance on the business. It's not challenging that company to have lots of IT costs and infrastructure, resource challenges. So that also for us was a real key thing when we was evaluating Six Rivers, because of course with our sort of OSRS platform, the sort of cubic-based ASRS that we have, that certainly can be a longer implementation period. We need to understand an awful lot about each individual environment that we're going into. And one of the key things is we want to make sure that our clients have the opportunity to have a solution in quite fast. If we have a lead time, let's say, of 18 months to deploy a larger solution, that means there's still pain there for a customer. And Chuck really enables us to hit that quite head on. We can deploy a Chuck strategy within around 12 to 14 weeks. We can have that live, up and running, all fully integrated and fully mapped out around processes. We can do that whilst we then continue to evaluate the sort of larger pains the business are having. And that immediacy to deploy quick can give us that agility that our clients are looking for. So if they have an imminent peak that's coming through, they're not left with that pain whilst they're evaluating other parts of their business. So really for us, the integration is something that's really important, very easy to deploy, and certainly gives more opportunities to alleviate some of those early challenges, so we can continue to evaluate what would be next for a business.
Excellent. And John, just in regards to the automation strategy GXO employs, would you like to discuss a bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So GXO is a global contract logistics company with over 900 sites globally. And we differentiate ourselves from a lot of the competition in that over 40% of our business has automation built into the solutions compared to the market average of less than 10%. And for us, as I mentioned earlier, we divide our automation into two categories in terms of large-scale automation. So when we talk about Ocado's cubic system, that's really perfect. It's large infrastructural design. We're able to deploy that. And then we have Chuck, and that meets a lot of our customer requirements. GXO was a very early adopter of the technology back in 2017. We've got over 800 units now deployed across 40 sites globally. And that ease of deployment that Jamie talked about, the ability to fit it to existing operations. And it's a great entry-level technology for a lot of our customers who are still trying to figure out their automation journey and where they want to be and how they want to progress. And certainly during COVID, obviously volumes changed, profile changed the business, and this was a perfect solution during that time to be able to deploy. For sure. So the warehouse is obviously seeing benefits. Just looking at understanding the journey, I guess, they're going on when they're doing this, if there's anyone in the crowd who's thinking about... Yeah, certainly. So in terms of the benefits that GXO have seen from the technology, is obviously the obvious one is productivity gain. So when you engage with the team from Six Rivers, they'll talk about the long walk, the that the operatives do at the start of the process, at the end of the process. Well, with choke glass removed, the operative stays within the picking environment for much longer. So the robots come to them. They have all the instructions that they require to do their job. It's all very visual, and it leads them, which is great for training. So typically in the past during peak, we would bring temporary labour in much early to get them up to speed or competence to be able to deliver a peak delivery. With Chuck, so it gives them everything they need. We're able to reduce that training time because you can basically give an operative a chuck and say, follow it. All the instructions are there. There's pictures, so we use pictures. So it enables them, when they go to pick, they already know exactly whether it's a shoe or it's a T-shirt. Everything's visually. It tells them which side of the aisle. And as you can see here on the video, we've seen up to 40% increase in productivity as well as accuracy because of those pictures. And it's so flexible in terms of, in the solution that we've done here, we worked heavily with 6 Rivers to deploy it into a multi-tier mezzanine structure.
For sure. And I'd throw it out to the panel. The difference between obviously a brownfield site and a greenfield site, obviously it's always harder to retrofit and to do things, but how have you seen the differences there?
Yeah, I'd love to take that one.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the most positive design features of this solution, that flexibility and the need to not need additional infrastructure. When we go into a site, we're looking at applicability to do mobile robotic approach. And the biggest thing that we run into is just aisle width, because other than that, we're using navigatable sensors like LiDAR, right? Scanners and things along those lines to basically allow Chuck to perform the functions that John mentioned, right? So it's easy to go into brownfield sites and evaluate if it's ready to move to this type of a technology. Greenfield site is obviously superb because we do an optimal layout from the beginning, right? But the reality is, and John deals with this all the time, being a 3PL business, his client consistently shifts. His needs shift, not only from operation to operation, but even as he is managing that customer's goods over time. Their workflows change, their needs change. And that's the beautiful thing about this solution is its adaptability and what we've addressed in the different workflows. What John mentioned in regards to the mezzanine picking and the multiple levels, we've deployed that within the last year or so to their operations as mezzanines became so prevalent, right, in the different marketplaces that we work in. So it's super important to understand from the beginning where the business is going and what business problems they're trying to address by applying, mobile robotics to their operation.
For sure. And obviously anyone who knows Ocado knows the profile of the products and the such, but I was on the presentation yesterday with the CEO talking about obviously around the world, a lot of things popping up, the different partnerships. Where does it work, obviously, in terms of the product, the type of product it can do? Can it, move to larger products? Can you go into different verticals? How does that work?
Great question. So from a 6RS perspective, we're not really vertically bound, right? What we're bound by more is Chuck has a payload of 200 pounds, and obviously there's a shelf capacity. What we have done is extended the software so that if you can, we take the brains off of the mobile robotic platform so that we can address larger SKUs, things that are vertical, because the robot doesn't fly yet, right? So how do we do that? And then also anything that's weight limited, right? So we basically attach what we call mobile fulfillment application along with the robot to address those other areas of the business. But I think that there are additional things that we consider. We're talking about pick and pass, right? How do we get more efficient, do better movement, even within the logic decisions that the software's done?
For sure,
okay?
For sure. I just asked if there's any questions from the audience at this time. It's a bit hard to see with this light. No? We'll continue on. Excellent. So just look at the size of the warehouse that Chuck can be deployed to. Did you want to sort of give an idea of, for it's intra-city, if it's got to be larger warehouses, how does that work?
Yeah, we're not limited by the size of the warehouse. Actually, where the economies of scale kind of come into play is a certain volume to justify putting in a solution like this. And what we find is you're probably right around 5,000 orders a day to really make this make sense on the low level. And then really there's no upper range. GXO has a very large site here just south, in the Netherlands, down in Nelrode, that has 66 of these robots in there, right? And if you look at other AMR platforms, it's our capacity that makes sense. if you look at competitors of ours, they're going to need 2 to 3 times the amount of equipment on the floor in order to address that same square footage. So it's not really a space limitation. It's just mapping out that floor to basically allow Chuck to navigate where he needs to go.
Excellent.
I think as well, if I can just add a little bit around the performance side. So as Roy mentioned, it can be an operation anywhere from like 2,000 to 5,000 orders per day. There really aren't any upper bounds in terms of what Chuck can do to deliver more performance, to yield those return on investments that a business might be looking for. But of course, Chuck is to form part of the Ocado Intelligent Automation solution portfolio. So we're doing some evaluations of customer projects where they might be shipping 100,000, 200,000 orders per day. And we find that by having a larger portfolio in hardware and software stacks really enables us to dig deep into what each operation is looking for. We're not trying to put everything inside a tote. We understand that there is going to be a SKU range. I call them uglies. People might call it non-totables. But it could also just be that there might be fast-moving strategies. So when it comes to automating, one of the biggest challenges is peak. If you put automation in to meet peak demand, typically you won't get that return on investment because you're going to have about 40% of your cost delivering 10% of your year. Yeah. And the rest of the time, it's sat doing nothing.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is make sure that when we're looking at solutions, if it's our OSRS platform or our Chuck platform or a combination of the two, we're finding a lot of opportunities right now where we put an OSRS solution forward that can handle the majority of the year, 85, 95% of the time. We want to ensure that that utilization of the equipment, so how are we sweating it? Is it actually being used? Are you getting full value for what you've paid for? And then during peak periods, we have strategies now where we're able to remove some of the SKUs out of the OSRS platform. That's our cubic ASRS. And then put that into a Chuck strategy. So using Chucks to route through the fast-moving SKUs. Again, you can have them on rental models. You can have peak Chucks to handle peak throughputs. Yep. And it really makes sure that when we're doing solution designs, we are genuinely trying to think about the end user, the client, people like GXO. Are we giving value? Are we making sure that return on investment strategy is fully understood by both our sales and our solutions teams? And what is the long-term strategy and the challenges a business has? So Chuck's really come along and really helped Ocado, I think, genuinely become a solutions provider and not just, hey, can you put it in our tote? And if you can't, it's not our problem. So yeah, we're really excited and we're definitely seeing some things with that.
I would actually expand on that since the acquisition. So the acquisition has been around for now about a year that we've been a part of the Ocado family. And 6 River customers that are growing, right? Some of these customers growing 5 to 20% year over year. And they already have a need to now be considering a look at the high-end cubic capacity solution. And before, we didn't have that in our portfolio, like Jamie said. Now with this combined solution stack under OIA, we can offer that client a growth strategy beyond just what Chuck moves. And like I said, remember when I started, Chuck was built for this niche between a manual operation and really high-end investment. And so we absolutely understand that there's not any operation where there's really one approach, John, right? I mean, look across your operations. Even though we're doing a lot of work, you guys do a lot of different technologies.
Agreed. And for us with Chuck and 6 Rivers, we've actually been able to boil it down to 5 questions. So when we go to site, we've got 5 questions that we can ask. And if the site answer those 5 questions yes, then we know that potentially Chuck and the solution is a good fit. And if anybody wants to know what those 5 questions are, come and see me later and I might share them with you. But it is really, really flexible. And to the question earlier around size of warehouse and operation, GXO have got facilities where we've got 10 and we've got facilities where we've got 100. And it is that modular, it's that flexible. And we've had operations where we've started with 10, we've gone to 20, and this site here that we've got on the video, Adidas in the UK, started with 25, and they're now up to 50. So it is really modular. And to Jamie's point around the trying to design your automation for your peak hour, peak day really can destroy an ROI. So what we've been able to do is been able to design certainly around Chuck the solution so that we really are sweating it for 8% of the year. And in that period when we bust the capacity, we can either bring in short-term rentals, or in this example, we actually move the Chucks around. So at the moment, this is on a multi-tier mezzanine, and we actually take some Chucks off one of the levels, repurpose them down so that we've got capacity to fill the lower levels,
Yeah.
and then the top level where there's less volume, we can go to a manual pick, and then we can do it that way as well. So it's really, really flexible for us.
Excellent. And I know from 3PL background, the KPIs, obviously, the expectations of hitting. How does, obviously, the Chuck solution help with that? And obviously, through Six Rivers as well.
Yeah, I'd love to address that one. Chuck software, remember I said we're really a software company that enables a robot, right? It's the software that is looking at what those expected out the door times are and managing that work to the floor, what to put on Chuck at the right time to get those appropriate product turns and get them out the door and meet those SLAs that are incredibly important to all businesses, and especially a 3PL as they're servicing a client, right, to deliver the expected outcome. So we basically have what we call guaranteed SLA built into the software to drive how we're pulling product off the floor, not breaking any business rules to get it out the door on time.
For sure. And just in regards to the technology, obviously implementation into warehouse systems, etc., how difficult is it, and what's involved in sort of integrating the IT side of things?
If I go slightly first on that one. So we've done this with very, very simple CSV file transfers through to full IT integration with WMS. And for us, it's not been the most challenging technology we've deployed by any means. You can do it with very simple interfaces. I think it's about 4 to 6 is all you need. And we've, as Jamie mentioned earlier, the deployment time, the lead time can be very, very short, 12 to 14 weeks, and less in some instances. So from our experience, it's been very, very easy, I would say.
Excellent.
I think actually there was just one point I wanted to add to when we were talking about the data side. We have a really great customer success team here at Ocado, and when we deploy any solution, whether it be Chuck solution or any of the larger OSRS projects, our customer success team is probably, I think, quite a unique thing, because we really want to go on that life cycle with our customers. I'm not talking about a maintenance team that's just looking after it. It's actually a team that is regularly engaged with the end user, the operational team, and looking at the KPIs. We're taking all of that real-time data all of the time and feeding that back to our clients. So we're trying to understand, do you need more Chucks? Do you need to think of alternative strategies? What lessons have we learned from other clients' operations that we can pass on to our new customers? And it's a really important piece, because normally what can happen with automation, you can procure the automation, it sits on site, you're then responsible, you own it. If it breaks, give us a call. And I think whilst that does work in a lot of operations, because companies are building more competencies in-house, and that's fantastic, but sometimes just to have your hand held and say, hey, you're probably not doing this as well as you could be doing it, that's something I think that the Chuck and the team that we have who have come across into Ocado and now integrated into the business, they've been definitely, I think, showing our team how to get better at looking at that. How do we look after that customer following the order, following the successful implementation? Some of the GXO accounts are several years old, as mentioned, and I think the relationship that our customer success team have with the individuals, I've been around to their sites, I've been around with some of our key account managers who are doing an excellent job, and you see that relationship that they have. I think really that's something that can very quickly be overlooked by, the nice shiny robots that are running around. It is the people that are supporting these operations as well that make a critical piece of our business.
A lot of that team has operational background, and so they're really working alongside them. I've heard some of our clients come to me, and I'm on the commercial side of the business within the organization, and come tell me, like, it's so important that you understand my business, not that you just sold me this solution, for 2 reasons. One, understand how our system is operating and what can we do to it to provide more value that Jamie leaned into. But number 2, what's going to change in regards to their client needs? And does the solution meet that? Can it continue to adapt? As John said, we're in this adaptive technology sector for them. It's super important to understand the business and be on this journey with them, not just, as Jamie said, show up, deliver a solution, and you're out the door. And we hear this all the time, that our clients actually consider us an extension of their family.
And the reason as well, I mentioned the customer success team, pulling back to the integration piece, is if, for example, there was an integration that might not go as smooth as you wanted it to. Hey, look, we're not all perfect. Things don't go as we want them to. That's fine, and it's about learning from those lessons. And we've certainly seen this with different sites. We might have seen it with GXO and other partners that we have. But it might not have gone as well as we wanted it to on that first site. The opportunity to work together is far greater than one deployment. So that customer success team will take all of those lessons back, because of course, if we're doing a project that might be in Central Europe, or it might be in the UK, or it might be in North America, if we can utilize that customer success team to be that continuous individual who understands what happened on the last project, what might happen next, what are the lessons that we've learned with your teams, with your infrastructure, I think, again, that's a really critical piece as to why we're now starting to have lots of successful, fast deployments across sites. And we're seeing an awful lot of repeat business from our customers, I think, because of some of those reasons.
For sure. And in terms of the solutions, are you basically going there and saying this is our solution, or are you looking at potentially developing new exciting things as you traipse into new territories, new zones, new products?
There's an entire group of people that are within Ocado that are really research and strategists, right, is what I call them. But they're focused on what we're doing next with all this tech that we have in this portfolio. And we are always looking at it from a business problem perspective, Nathan. Yeah. There's so many companies in this sector who build cool tech. But are they really addressing the problem, right? Yeah. But to your point, we are coming out with a larger form factor robot, right, to address some of these additional problems that operations has. Could we have done this 2 years ago? Yep. Yeah. But what we're going to put out, you're going to see is truly addressing the problem. And it's not just cool tech to have a larger platform. And we get asked this a lot in regards to, where are we going and why. Ocado has acquired other technologies outside of Six River. Robotic arms, for instance, and we are absolutely putting together solutions to address the ongoing, processes that are within the operations. One of the big ones that I think is out there is the amount of singles that we now do because of e-commerce. And we go and we pick them all really effectively with Chuck, and then we drop them on a pack line. If we speed it up picking to impact packing, what did we do, right? Yeah. So that's a big problem that we're looking at right now on what can we do better with all the tech that we have to improve what we provide to our clients.
I think as well, a really important piece that I think I mentioned at the start of this. So Ocado still operates as Ocado. We are still a retailer across the UK. We have our own warehouses. So all of the innovations that we're bringing to market are things that we need ourselves. So these are addressing things like order accuracy, labor shortages, availability of people, everything I think that are challenges most businesses are now seeing. And for us, we understand that we need to try and automate as much of a process as we can, wherever possible. And we're continuously trying to innovate each and every part of our own processes in our own warehouses. So the technology that we bring to market is something that we designed it, we tested it, we rolled it out in our own sites, and now we're bringing it to the marketplace. So the innovations that we have coming out soon, as mentioned, are all there to try and address our own problems. But of course, we are taking feedback all the time from customers. We have an excellent market research team that are always looking for what automation challenges could there be in the industry right now. We're feeding that back into our technology team. Ocado have over 2,000 technologists within our business whose job it is to be doing R&D, to look at how we can design things differently. How can we make our software more efficient? How can we use the real-time data that we're getting from our own sites and customer sites to drastically improve each part of each process? For example, I don't know if anyone has had the chance to stand on our booth. We've got our on-grid robotic picking that you can see. So that's something we've deployed live and is something that we are now selling to the marketplace. But that's version 1. Right. We're already working on version 3. So version 2 is still coming out. So the acquisitions that Ocado make are all about trying to improve the processes that we have ourselves and certainly bring those advantages to the market when we start going out and working direct with customers.
Jamie, you made me think of something, which is obviously the voice of the customer is incredibly important to us, right? Yep. We leverage that customer success team. We have all these strategists, but there are over 40 points of AI across our system that we're also continually learning from. And that is assisting us in what to do next as well. So the data insights that we not only provide to ourselves because we are an operator, being Ocado, but also to our clients to run their business. With robotics, there are so many more points of data and information that we can gather on where things should be and why they should be there and how they should turn, that we're also taking advantage of to drive into these future solutions.
Definitely. I'll throw it out to the crowd. Is there any questions? Yes? Down here? Wait, we've got a... Oh, where's the microphone? Over there. This light, isn't it?
Thank you. What's the average return on investment time for Chuck Solution?
It's a really good question. What we find on average is right around a year to a year and a half. And that speaks into what's that right sizing of the solution and what Jamie talked about, not over-engineering and not under-engineering, and focusing on what are the peaks and valleys in the business. Those peaks and valleys drive what do they need for peak, or what could we lower on the design in order to achieve those kind of ROIs. I will tell you there's many times we're modeling and we're showing or seeing a 2 or 2.5 year, right? And we work in order to understand what's the time frame you have the client, John? Right? How important is that in regards to that return? Sometimes 2 years is fine, but we've got a lot of clients like, I'm only operating this business. My contract only goes for another year and a half. How do we get this to that point? So we work hand in hand, our solutions team with GXO's solutions team as one example, in order to hone in on what does that solution really need to do today and then tomorrow. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, so I would agree that, so GXO's policy typically around adaptive tech is less than 2 years because we're a 3PL. Typically our contracts are only 3 years. We are getting larger contracts with the larger automation, but picking up on what Royanna said, in some instances we've actually seen less than 12 months for this technology. It really does depend on the throughputs, the size of the operation, and whether it's a 2 or 3 shift operation, whether you can sweat it, but typically definitely less than 2 years, and in some cases less than 12 months.
We've seen some operations and realize that the volumes and the pick density really matter, right, when it comes to some of these solutions. I've got a client right now that we're working with. The ROI is telling them it's going to be less than 5 months, right? That's really hard to believe from a C-suite, right? So then you have to go in and really start understanding how are you getting there and why? And what am I doing wrong today if you're driving that much value? And it is, again, about this software and what this software intelligence does that the current stack in this business isn't meeting. So it's all these things together that get you those kind of outcomes.
Excellent. So any other questions from the crowd? No? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just I guess the one thing that I would pose, from the CEO's discussion yesterday, he was talking about obviously the global expansion and what that means. I think what's amazing is a pure play retailer moving into bricks and mortar and going the opposite direction to where a lot of the others have gone. Where do you see, obviously, as you expand to new customers, sort of into dealing with large companies like Coles in Australia, for example, where do you see your technology sort of evolving in that respect?
I think for us, the technology, because we're utilizing it ourselves, actually what we're trying to do is replicate our own success. So what challenges did we have as a business when we first started buying from other technology providers? How did the integrations go? And it was that journey that led us to developing our own technology. So for us, we feel that if we continue to replicate what Ocado does well, we should be able to share that success with other partners. And of course, that's in the grocery model you referenced there. Yeah. I think when it comes to non-grocery verticals, it really is about looking at the similarities in the order profiles, understanding what those profiles look like for us. At the same time, we recognize our solution isn't the solution for everybody. And we're not trying to go to market and pretend that it is either. We really want to work in a consultative way. We want to engage, whether it's directly with the consumer, whether it's via integrators, whether it's via consultants. We want to make sure that we are providing value in each area of each business that we deal with. So I think making sure there's a good evaluation, understanding the customer pains, understanding the challenges, and then finding if it is the right fit for Ocado. We don't want to try and push things that aren't going to be right for people.
Yeah, for sure.
What I would add to that is also the fact that, and everybody thinks their vertical is unique, by the way, and every vertical has its own challenges. But grocery specifically, where Ocado started, have so many unique situations. You got 3 different environments. You got, frozen, ambient, right? Cold, right? Plus, you've got all the requirements around expirations, tracking, catch weight, all these unique processes that actually lean in to other verticals. And I started in grocery when I got into doing supply chain. And I still think it's one of the hardest verticals that's out there, maybe next to pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah.
For the tracking and the security and the safety. But I think it's because of that why we said we should make this commercial and start impacting other verticals, because of the strength that we already had in the solution and in that software stack to address the workflows that are out there.
Yeah, the evolution's amazing. Like I started in groceries as well when I was young. And, you know, that was all people's brains. You know, you had to be on the floor and they say, don't mix this with this.
That's right.
Don't put bleach with the bread, you know, different things like that.
Don't crush the chips,
Don't
right?
crush the chips, everything like that. So the fact has now moved to this and obviously changed the dynamic of how the operations work. I guess if I was to say 5 years from now, where do you think the technology is going and what do you think you're going to see evolve? Because obviously since pandemic, the evolution of groceries, the evolution of delivery has changed remarkably. So what's happening in 5 years, assuming there's not another pandemic?
I'd love to hear this from my client, because the role that he's in, I'd love to get his view, and Jamie and I might be able to share some more.
Okay, so from GXO's perspective, we're leaning into AI heavily. So we've got a number of initiatives within the new global structure that we've got for automation, which I sit in. We'll be recruiting AI specialists to work with that, and we've got a number of projects that we're working on at the moment that we will be making some announcements on around optimization. As a business, we're realizing that WMSs are only going so far. The complexity within the warehouse is becoming significantly more in terms of the size of the order well. Customers want omni-channel, so you've got huge different verticals all being processed from within the same four walls, and AI is certainly going to help with leaning into that, and in terms of automation optimization as well. So definitely see AI as being something that will certainly accelerate within logistics. And then the other interesting one, which you'll see if you Google GXO and some of the news that we're doing at the moment, we're also looking at humanoids, which is really like scary and interesting in the same breath.
Please don't, John.
And it's an interesting technology. It's not there yet. It's certainly not there. We've done a number of trials and things like battery life is just and the gripper technology. But as that gripper technology, as that AI improves, we won't be far away from the Terminator walking around the warehouse. But it's certainly an interesting one that we're looking at in terms of technology. And we talk about robotics. Robotics have been around for a while, but that gripper technology is now really, really coming on in terms of the being able to grasp. We've deployed robotics in a number of our warehouses, and the challenge that we always have is, certainly in apparel where you've got over 200,000 different SKUs, is trying to be able to handle everything within that range, and that I think will improve over time as well.
I think on the robot piece, Bicken has mentioned so Ocado also procured a business called Kindred Systems, and we simply did this because of their expertise and sort of industry-leading end effectors. So the gripper technology that John's mentioned in there. So we very much understand that. You can imagine in grocery, we have 50 to 60,000 SKUs in our range, all of which have their own complexities and challenges. So we have a vision of being able to automate as much of that pick as we can, utilizing our on-grid robotic picking. We are taking all that real-time data as mentioned, so our team are working extremely hard in the background. They're building all of the AI infrastructure to make sure that we learn all the time from our own picks. And I think that the world of certainly grocery, but I think beyond that, is understanding the challenges that we have with labor. That really is the challenge. And it's not about replacing jobs. It's actually about enabling companies to remain profitable and keep the doors open. Lots of companies are growing because of the consumer behaviors we see with online buying, which is fantastic, but it puts an awful lot of stress on a business. Throughputs aren't linear. If I add 2 more people in a pick aisle, I don't get 2 times the pick rate. You're going to bump into each other. You start getting in the way of each other. And then, of course, I can now meet those demands, but then those people don't want to do the job, or the labor pool is just so small in the area, and you start to see a little bit of monopolization of these agencies and things. So I think automating where we can is definitely going to continue to drive success for our partners and for people around the world, for sure.
Yeah. What I would say to your question is, we talked a lot about picking right now. There's a lot of other workflows in the four walls of a distribution center. So Chuck's addressing put away as well, but there's loading, there's exception handling. There's so many things to do in a business that if I can shift that labor that I do have access to those exceptions and those things that I don't basically can automate, I'll focus on that. And there are not enough resources, to Jamie's point. So I think we're going to see, 5 years from now, kind of where John went, 10 years from now, I think you're going to see a lot more what we call dark store operations as automation matures and really people latch on to the benefits.
Yeah. I am allowed to say as well, I spoke with our communications team, and just on the point of offloading, so we are actually just going through some trials of our own fully automated depalletization and repalletization solution. So we understand that, as you said, it isn't just picking. There are lots of things in an operation where you can improve things and make an operator's life easier. So we have lots of new things that are coming for sure.
For sure. And I'll just point to, Jamie, your comment around, people worried about people being moved out of a warehouse and such, but you've added 2,500 jobs to create new technology to create more jobs.
Absolutely.
So
That's
people
right.
always take the negative view, but actually the positive is, I've done that work. It can be mind-numbing. Pick and pack and such. You're moving them out of there and moving them into different areas of the business. So I think that's amazing what the business does.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Just throw it out to the crowd. Is there any further questions at all? No?
One thing I will have add, of course, we have got a booth here, so if there are any follow-up questions or you'd like to speak with one of the team, please do come over. We'd be happy to go through anything you want to discuss with us.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Nathan. And
Thank you.
Say thank you to
I was going to say thank you to
you.
our partner for joining us on the stage.
Thank
It was
you.
a really big ask, and we appreciate you sharing the info.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.